It is Bengals week. I mean, really, like we are what less than we're a little bit over 12 hours. Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. A little over 12 hours away from kickoff, man. Which is crazy because I'm doing a preview a little bit late, but nonetheless, what do the Ravens have to do to stop this high-powered offense that seems like it's kind of in the terms of personnel went the complete opposite way of the Ravens? What do the Ravens got to do to stop the Jamar Chases of the world, the T. Higgins of the world, the Tyler Boyds of the world, the Hayden Hurst of the world, the Joe Burrows of the world, the Joe Mixons of the world? There's plenty to be done, but will the Ravens do it? Or will we see kind of what the Ravens have done in the past over these past couple games where they outplay a team but still end up losing? What will happen against the Bengals? What do I think? What do you think? Let's see. All right, what's going on? Good people. DJ right here, Flock Nation Speaks. Bengals, Ravens preview. Gonna keep it pretty short this week. Just in a weird place. Forgot my computer. Just actually, I forgot my charger. Weird things happen. You know how it goes. But nonetheless, gonna try to deliver anyway. Ravens, Bengals preview. I feel like this is the game out of all the games this season. I think this first Bengals game, and not because it's at home, just because it's the first Bengals game, right? With a decently healthy roster for the Ravens in a year, I think we're all excited to see what's going to happen. I said it when I was talking about the defense. They were making some additions. They were trying to add to the secondary to kind of keep up with the Joneses in a way, at least on the defensive end, to defend some of these great wide receivers they have to defend. And I was like, you know what? I want to see what the Bengals are going to do against a not depleted secondary. Because we know, right? We know how the Ravens operate in a way when it comes to the secondary. Before it was Jimmy Smith. When Jimmy Smith went out, the secondary kind of was, it looked depleted. They played depleted, and they could not find their way. But then, of course, in 2019, when the trade for Marcus Peters happened because of all the Jimmy Smith injuries, that kind of changed that game a little bit. Last year, there was no Marcus Peters, and Jamar Chase went off. I mean, pretty much every receiver they had went off, especially when it came to the top two with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Those two guys went off last year, and it was big play after big play. And we've been seeing this for the past couple of years. And even if you want to lump this in those last 3 years, right? And I'd say probably the last 2 years plus what we've seen so far this season. I think the biggest thing the Ravens going to have to do going into this game, limit big plays. It's amazing how well the defense can play when they're not getting beat deep, when they're not getting beat over the top, when there's not these one play, two play drive touchdowns that end up pretty much decimating your entire defense. Kind of like we saw within the Dolphins game. I think there's positives to look at from what we saw from the Ravens last week against the Bills, albeit they lost. It was a ugly loss, or maybe even a pretty loss if you look at it from the defensive end, because the defense played well. The offense was kind of but the defense played well, and I think defensively they can take notes of last week. And of course, I mean, the Bengals might be the most talented offense in the league, like in terms of like the weapons they have. They're young, they're talented, and they've been there, done that too, right? So it'll be interesting because the Bengals have kind of gotten off to a slow start, which is kind of good for the Ravens considering they kind of also gotten off to a slow start. I mean, they've gotten off to fast starts in the games, but in terms of the end of games, they've kind of gotten off to slow starts. So that's kind of my thing when I look at it right now. Like the biggest thing for the defense coming in is like don't allow them to beat you with the big plays. Last week, I think the defense played so well because we talked about it last week in the preview. We were talking about like don't allow the Bills to have big plays. If you make the Bills nickel and dime you, it's going to be harder for them to get down the field. And I mean that's really the defense philosophy against every team. If you can slow down teams' abilities to be efficient on third down and also slow down their ability to make a big play and beat you over the top, you're going to be in a good way. You're going to be exactly where you need to be when it comes down to it defensively. And I think we talked about it before, and I think it's been talked about so much, and everybody's like, "Oh my goodness, the Ravens have the 32nd ranked defense. They can't cover anybody. They're young, right? They're young. They're young in the secondary." And I get it. They have first round picks, and these guys should be coming out here and making these plays, and I get that. But a lot of times with youth, what happens is you got to, the buzzword like I was talking about before is cohesion. You got to put it together, and that's going to be the biggest thing as the season continues to develop. I expect these next 4 weeks to be better than the first four were. Now, the thing about that is, why is that a big deal, right? Why is it like, why should we not judge the first 4 weeks of the Ravens season and be like, well, that's how the rest of the season's going to go? Well, first things first, usually the first 4 weeks are not necessarily an indicator of what you're going to do for the rest of the season. But two, let's be honest, right? The Ravens have a lot of pieces coming back, a lot of pieces trying to fit in, a lot of pieces that are going to come back before they're 100%. And that is something that I think fans also have to be cognizant of, right? Let's be real about things. Marcus Peters was not 100% when he came in against the Dolphins, right? If Marcus Peters is 100% against the Dolphins, I don't think we see as many big plays. For the simple fact of Marcus Peters can be that leader, but like once Marcus Peters got going, especially in week 3 and in week 4, we saw the potential of what this defense can be. And I know Marcus Peters is questionable coming in with that quad injury. I don't even know when he got injured, but he might have got injured trying to fight John Harbaugh at the end of the game last week. But he's questionable coming in. If Marcus Peters can figure out a way to go in the game, be healthy against the talent that the Bengals have, that's a big deal, right? That's a big deal. That's something where that's something we didn't have last season, right? Last season it was Marlon Humphrey against the universe, right? It was Marlon Humphrey can shut people down, but it helps when you got a guy like Marcus Peters out there to help you out on T. Higgins, right? You put a guy who could be a number one corner, right, at a number two spot. That's big. I know he's getting older. I know he's had some injuries, but like Marcus Peters does just as good of a job of shutting people down as Marlon Humphrey does, and the tandem together is the big deal. And I know, corners 3 through 5 are a little bit younger, right? Especially without Kyle Fuller being in there, they're a little bit younger, and that's a concern. Can be a concern, but I think when you look at it, cohesion is going to be the best thing for the Ravens defensively. And if last week was a pretty good week for lack of miscommunication. There was no big miscommunication gaps in the secondary that made it so that the Bills get off big plays. And they got talent too. Now, the Bengals talent is a little better than the Bills talent, right? They got pretty much 3 number 1 wide receivers. Tyler Boyd has been a number 1 wide receiver before. He knows how to do it. T. Higgins, a glorified number 1 receiver. Jamar Chase, an absolute number 1 wide receiver. So, yes, it's going to be tough to see who gets matched up on kind of Tyler Boyd. If it's Brandon Stevens, we'll see, right? It's going to be a lot of the defense maturing. And I think it could be tough sledding for the defense, but I think the biggest thing is make the Bengals work down the field. Make the Bengals work down the field. Frustrate Jamar Chase. We saw when they played against the Jets. Sauce Gardner got in the head of Jamar Chase. Frustrate Jamar Chase early, and let's force Burrow to throw some picks because we know we know he can throw. He can throw picks. He is prone for turnovers, especially considering if you can get pressure in his face. And this is a good game to kind of get your sack numbers back up because of that offensive line is still, speaking of cohesion, gelling together. So defensively, I think first things first, do not allow big plays. That's going to be like a key to defensive success for the rest of the year. Don't allow big plays. Teams tend to struggle against the Ravens when they're not able to beat them, with speed on the back end, right? When they're not able to beat them with, with the fact that the Ravens are miscommunicating and blowing coverages, right? Which, I mean, that's an easy way to beat any team. But the Ravens, for whatever reason, it's either all the way up or it's all the way down, right? There ain't really no in between, right? Last week was a good week for the Ravens defense against a good, explosive offense. This week, you got running game to deal with. You got talent all over the place to deal with when it comes in the passing game. And I think the Ravens can pull it off when it comes to the defensive end of things. It's going to be tough, though. I ain't going to lie to you. But then also, you got to worry about on the offensive end, can you stay consistent? Right? That's a big deal. Can you stay consistent if you are on the offensive end for the Ravens? Right? First half, it's been great. We saw it against Miami. You played against great teams. You played against great teams so far, and we saw it. Miami, you look good. You're doing your thing. 5 touchdowns. Jackson fives all over the place this season, right? But you somehow lose these games. So you got to play a full 4 quarters of football, right? Not just 2, not just 1, not just 3. You got to play a full 4 quarters of football. What's up, Justin? How you doing, man? By the way, Justin, Extreme Rules is pretty fun. I enjoyed it. Just for kicks and giggles. But that's the thing, man. Check out my boy Juggernaut 097 on the wrestling kick. He's supposed to be having this For the Kingdom Chiefs podcast coming up. So if any Chiefs fans are out there, he's supposed to be starting it. I think he's still in preseason shape. But when it comes to this offense, they just got to be consistent and also be aggressive. Be aggressive. Aggressive. Like, I'm gonna have to be the cheerleader out there. Like, yeah, they have to be aggressive. They like My biggest thing is going to be put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands. That run game is going to work, but once again, you got guys who are not quite 100%. J.K. Dobbins is not quite 100%. Gus, who I think is playing this week, is not quite 100%. So don't feel like you got to lean into your running game too much when you got guys who aren't quite 100%. So I think that's another thing, too. On the offensive end, the Ravens are going to have to be consistent. Finish the game. Like, literally, and when I say finish the game, if you could be half of what you were in the first half of these games, you're going for the third and fourth quarters of these next, let's just say 4 weeks. Let's break it down into four more weeks, right? Just think about how much better and how many more wins you're going to be able to stack because you were consistent throughout the game, at least decently consistent. Like, literally in the Dolphins game, you score one more touchdown, you win that game. In the Bills game, you score that the let's say you do score on that 4th and goal, you win that game. So, or worst case scenario, you go into overtime and it's anybody's ball game. So I think offensively, I mean, the key to this game, the key to the rest of the season, really, is to be consistent. Don't be afraid to be aggressive, but also, situationally, make sure that you're being smart about what you're doing. John Harbaugh, you don't have to always go for it on 4th down. You don't have to always kind of go for the win. Go for the win when it makes sense to go for the win. Don't be afraid to put your best Hall of Fame kicker out there and go win the game smartly, right? Intelligently. Be intelligent about what you're doing, because it's not like John Harbaugh doesn't know how to be intelligent as a coach. He's made some great decisions in his career. It's just the analytics as of the past pretty much 2 seasons has been a little bit more of kind of a yikes, kind of an issue. But I think I think, long story short, offensively, be consistent, right? Offensively, that's the biggest thing. Be consistent. Put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands. Let him spread the ball around. I know you out without Rashad Bateman. That could be a big deal. You might want to lean into the run a little bit more, but find creative ways to get these guys involved. That's going to be the thing. Defensively, no big plays. The Bengals are not going to nickel and dime you down the field. They are prone to make mistakes. So get in Jamar Chase's head, right? Don't forget about T. Higgins. He is a beast. Don't forget about T. Higgins. He was a guy I definitely wanted as a Ravens fan. Make sure defensively, no big plays. That's the biggest thing. But, I'm trying to keep it short, but, tangents happen. But as always, definitely hope you guys enjoyed the preview. I'm excited. Bengals Ravens this week. It's the game I've been looking forward to just because last year I thought, and it's not an excuse, but it was unfair to a certain degree. Like they had me, Justin, and a couple of people from Ravens Twitter playing corner. It felt like not literally, but for real though, right? Like not literally, but there were guys who like you were picking up off the street and expecting to guard Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd in 2 games. Like I don't. This just is not how that goes. But nonetheless, I think a little bit more health on the side. I think that the Ravens can make some noise, especially in the second portion of the season. Because the biggest thing is, I don't think the Ravens have been outplayed by anybody. I think they've outplayed themselves. They've I don't even want to say outsmarted themselves per se, but they definitely outplayed themselves. Like the Ravens have outplayed pretty much everybody they've played this season, but then bad coaching decisions, bad coaching comes into play, not being consistent on offense, giving up big plays on the defensive end. Without you make the Dolphins work for one or two of those touchdowns in the fourth quarter, they probably don't get as many touchdowns as they end up getting. One less, you win that game. For the Bills, you don't go for it on fourth down, you probably end up, forcing the Bills to either kick a field goal and go in overtime, or you end up winning the game because you ended up scoring, in the first 3 plays that you had. But nonetheless, definitely hope you guys enjoyed. You can listen to Flock Nation Speaks on Apple Podcast, Anchor, Spotify, etc., etc. Watch us on Facebook and YouTube. Definitely hope you guys enjoyed. Until look at me, look, I'm up in here. Until it's hard to do it on the phone. This is like this is why I need my computer. I need my comfort zone. Okay, like it's hard to do it on the phone because everything is so small. But as always, definitely hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back with a recap and whatnot for this game. I definitely hope it goes in the favor of the Ravens. Once again, this is one of those games where the Ravens probably need. This is a statement game, right? This is a game where the Ravens really need to come out and not only beat the Bengals, but beat the Bengals. Like they need to beat the Bengals by 2 scores or more, as hard as that is to do, because one win can change the entire thought process of your fan base, of your organization, of what you think about yourselves, the confidence of your team, all of that. Like one win against a good AFC team in the Bengals, regardless of their record and how they played, could be the difference between, man, looking back at the Bills game and thinking, dang, we had one and we let it slip away. Looking back at the Dolphins game and saying, man, we had one and let it slip away. And looking back at this one and saying, man, we might have one, right? So, it could be, I think somebody said a season-defining game. And yes, it can be because if you come in and you beat the Bengals, especially if you beat them by more than one score, then your stock rises just like that. The cream rises to the top. But as always, definitely hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys on the next one.